let's do
So
it.
that one's on.
And I'll hit record
That one's
here.
on. Sure. Yeah.
You guys are all set?
All right, appreciate you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Of course.
All right, coming live from Lawrence, Kansas, from the Lawrence Public Library. This is episode 2 of To Be Continued, the podcast of amazing people that I know across my career in sports, entertainment, comedy, and just personally as well. As you can see from my shirt, I just came in from outside, and it is hot today, but we are bringing in a hot guest, Mr. Curtis Marsh.
Good morning, Mr. Creed.
So, first of all, again, the podcast is about the beginnings of how I've met these people, what they're doing, and what they're going forward, because everyone's story is to be continued. But I've talked enough. I would allow and love to have my guest introduce himself a little bit.
Andy, I'd be happy to. I sure am honored to be among one of the first folks that you talk to on this podcast. I love the idea of finding out what is going on in people's lives and what is to come, because like you said, it's all to be continued in our lives, and it's not necessarily where you are, but where you're headed. I'm celebrating my 30th year as a KU employee this year. That's a long time, man, and there have been some really fun projects. I worked for at least 10 years before becoming the director of KU Info, and that was a 15-year stint that I absolutely loved. It's hard to think of a better job for someone who loves the University of Kansas. I was helping folks along with the best students on campus for so many years, and you know what? You couldn't help but learn an enormous amount about the university and the pride that you feel with being a part of such a cool place.
That's awesome. And so, going to the origin story. So, 30 years working or being a part of KU.
30 years working for KU,
And
another
then
5 as a student.
Yeah, let's get to those.
That's cool. You know, I grew up in a military family. We bounced around like crazy. My middle school years were in Germany, and then just in time for high school, I moved to Leavenworth, Kansas. Not because my dad was in the prison, but because he was teaching at the Command and General Staff College, and those were great years. You know, I was right in between Melissa Etheridge, who is a Leavenworth person, and Wayne Simeon, who you know is a Leavenworth pioneer. And it was a beautiful place. You know, I fully expected to pick up and go to college on the East Coast, where most of my family was from. And then my parents said, listen, we don't want you running around the house all summer. We're going to send you to KU for some summer camps. Absolutely loved it, fell in love with the place, became a student. And I don't know if this means I'm well-rounded or just totally confused, because I came to KU on a small music scholarship, entered the engineering school, started running a business club, and then got a journalism degree. So actually, I think there's a stronger argument for being totally confused, because I was running around doing all kinds of things and working at the Framewoods Gallery.
And we will get to that in a second, but obviously, Curtis Marsh is the epitome of the Renaissance man of everything that he's
I like
done.
that a lot better than confused as hell.
Yeah,
I
well,
like that.
aren't we all, right? Yeah, but no. And I'm not pandering to my guests, I promise y'all.
Nope.
And one really cool story that, again, my favorite word, and it occurs so much these days, is serendipity. I run into Curtis at one of the best bakeries in town, Wheatfields, the other morning. I go, hey, I just booked this studio sesh again here at the great Lawrence Public Library, and would love to have you as a guest. And that's how serendipity occurs, and
So cool.
very cool. Love Lawrence. So one really interesting story that Curtis shared with me at Wheatfields that just blew my mind was the picture that he shared of his father's military time that ties in with KU athletics and what was my origin with KU sport management program.
Yeah, that's a pretty straightforward
A
one.
legend.
An absolute legend in so many ways, an extraordinary human being. His name is Colonel Bernie Kish. He had a career in the Army, actually was, if I'm not mistaken, the director of the College Football Hall of Fame.
Yep.
And then came back to the University of Kansas and worked for more than 10 years. He was the director of ticketing for some time at Allen Fieldhouse, and then completed his career as an instructor.
Which I always knew him as Dr. Bernie Kish, not Colonel. But, yep, had to give a shout out. Appreciate Kish. We'll edit the post-production.
No, man, leave it in.
Yeah, why not? But, all right, so back to the origin story that you did drop a little Easter egg hint about Framewoods.
Right. So when I'll
This is...
if it's an origin story, I'm going to start with me as I think a sophomore in high school, and Leavenworth also has a downtown similar to Lawrence, just not quite as cool. I love you, Leavenworth, but it's no Mass Street. And I just walked around with my resume with almost nothing on it and asked downtown stores if they needed part-time help. You know, you've got to be willing to put yourself out there.
Yep.
Even if you are asking to be brought on for skills that you have not yet proven. And sure enough, the doormail gallery, a frame shop, needed some help. And so for several years, I worked in the basement of this place, making frames and cutting mats and glass. And then a couple years into my KU student career, I said I could really use some beer money at the very least. Let's see if this cool store downtown needs some help putting frames together and matting and glass work. And so I worked at the Framewoods Gallery and met this really young kid who was the son of kind of the second in command at Framewoods, and that was Andy Krieg. Come on.
Shout out Mary Ellen Cree. Still holding down Framewoods. If you want your frames or see awesome Kansas memorabilia, swing on through. Framewoods is still holding court on Mass Street.
It's a mistake not to go in there, especially if you're a KU fan of any sort. Framewoods Gallery and Dave Seal and Mary Ellen have an incredibly unique story that they tell through the merchandise in that store. It's amazing.
My goal is to encourage them to get on as some of my guests on this podcast as well. But based on your story, though, is about going to that Leavenworth frame shop, and you have no background of that skill set.
Zero.
But that's what's beautiful about that entrepreneurial spirit, and that sorry, I love to use taglines and whatnot, but it's a launch and learn. There's been so many times through my career that I'm like, what the heck am I doing? Screw it. Let's just get in and figure it out. FIO.
Andy, I got to tell your listeners. So here's a perfect example of what you're trying to say.
Oh gosh.
Come on. When I'm working at KU. No, I'm sorry. This is student. When I was a student at KU, I had a roommate who said, "Look, you're not doing much. The engineering's probably not going to happen for you because it seems like you're majoring in waiting for the basketball games, which I was spending a lot of time doing."
Which we will get to that.
Okay, very
which
cool.
is covered in Curtis's book, but
Indeed.
I digress.
Well, so he said, "I've got an entrepreneurship club, and we're kind of struggling, and I've got to get some help. Why don't you join us and help me with membership?" And I said, "Dude, I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm a musician. Okay, music requires an extraordinary amount of entrepreneurship, but the only thing that led me to a comfort level of helping this guy was that I had spent a summer doing artwork, doing frames and matting for the parents of my friends, because frankly, as great as the 2 galleries were that I worked at, man, it's expensive to get your stuff framed professionally. So I was like, well, hold on, that's in a way that's entrepreneurial. So
Sure.
I said, fine, I've done some entrepreneurship with my framing. I'll help you out. And to cut to the chase, Andy,
Mhm.
the one single thing that I can go back to say how I ended up with my first job, 100% it was the Entrepreneur Club. So, like you said, just launch and learn. I'm like, yeah, I suppose I was kind of hoping that I could work at this cool sporting goods store in Leavenworth, but I worked for a frame shop, which led me to an Entrepreneur Club, which 100% got me my job at KU.
And that's what it's all about, is risk it for the biscuit. And that's what it's all about. So, Curtis,
There you go. Now you're back on, buddy.
well, that was a cheesy term that I just said, so
Yeah,
I'm
so
glad the mic
it
didn't
didn't
pick it up.
take. It didn't take.
Risk it for the biscuit. Which, ironically, I just saw this meme the other day. That's a theory called the burnt toast theory.
Okay. I don't think I've heard of it.
Me neither. This was new. It was really interesting. There was a picture of a piece of toast,
Okay.
and a third of it was burnt, but the other third had mold on it. And they didn't eat that burnt toast because there was an error, or you miss your exit highway, or everything works out for a reason. Oh, you burnt the toast? All right, well, you weren't supposed to eat that piece of bread.
Because it was moldy.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
So, I don't know. I'm still workshopping
That's right.
that through. It was really interesting. So, and that's what you have to take risks and
Oh, yeah.
learn and adapt, and yeah, FIO. So you did talk and touch on one point about you dedicated a lot of your passion during your college days for KU basketball games. Now, what's the group that is famous and is covered in this book and still thriving to this day?
Oh man, we called we thought we were so cool. We called ourselves Captain Jayhawk and the Super Fans. Really, it was my freshman year, and this dates me like crazy, but my freshman year was 87-88, the year we won the championship, and not just
That's epic.
right. I mean, we remain to this day the national champions with the most regular season losses. There is no team since 1988 who actually we hold the record of more regular season losses than any other national champion in NCAA history. I don't know where you go with that, man.
I mean, that's KU info right there. That's the roots right there.
I mean, I don't know how you take that statistic and build a story around it, other than, man, we had a tough season. And Larry Brown had done such an extraordinary job in his short tenure as our coach, that we came into that season with a 50-plus home game winning record. And 3 teams beat us in Allen Fieldhouse that year. Very painful, because I don't even want to ask you to guess who the first person was. I mean, the first team to break our 54 home game winning streak was Kansas State University.
I was afraid of that.
Now,
Yeah.
Mitch Richmond was a part of that team. They had an extraordinary team. We'll get to that later.
I'll take K-State over Missouri. I was afraid you were going to say
Sure.
Mizzou. I was
No,
like, okay, we'll keep it in state.
No. Well, if you ever, I've got a picture of an old screenshot of Google if you typed in Kansas Final Fours, it says, did you mean, no. See, I screwed up my joke. If you type in Missouri Final Fours, it says, did you mean Kansas Final Fours?
Nice.
So, in any case, K-State beat us at home. Duke beat us at home. There's a story around that one that we'll get to later if you want to, but it was the origin of the Beware the Fog banner, was that game. Duke came in, we were killing them at the beginning, and then they came back and tied it at the end of regulation and beat us in overtime. Very painful, very frustrating, but K-State and Duke, and then, gosh dang it, Oklahoma came in averaging 100 points a game, averaging 100 points a game and beat us. But the reason I mention that is that in order to get to the Final Four that year, we had to beat K-State. In order to get the championship game, we had to beat Duke, and then we won the championship against Oklahoma. The three teams, you can't script that. The three teams that beat us at home that year, after we had a 54-game home winning streak, those were exactly the three schools that we had to beat to win the championship.
That was destiny then. I mean, like you said, you cannot write that.
No
It
way.
was meant to be. And shout out to the athletic director.
Bob Frederick,
Yep.
stud.
Yep.
Rest in peace. Absolutely wonderful man.
Rest in peace, Bob Frederick. I was honored to receive his scholarship award in grad school while
Nice.
in sport management. So much love to the Frederick family, and his predecessor was
I'm going to say Monty Johnson.
R.I.P. Monty.
Yeah.
He took me under his wing to help me guide into the athletic space as well. So very special people that come out of the history of Kansas. Yeah.
You can't overstate it. I mean, we kind of puff out our chests about several elements of the coaching tree that 125 plus years of KU basketball, and we've had 8 coaches, and so that's insane. 5 of them are in the Hall of Fame. So we did, if you want to circle back to the KU info thing, we had this crazy project, I guess you would say, with 3 of the KU info superstars. Shout out to Ty and Jake and Joey. They actually poured through the stats to find out what school came anywhere close to us as far as the percentage of coaches in our history that are in the Hall of Fame. Because if you've got 5 out of 8, I think that's like 60-something, 63% of our coaches are in the Hall of Fame. Number 2 was 25%. There is no school that comes anywhere. Of course, you have to have very few coaches in your history and lots of them in the Hall of Fame. So there you go.
Well, and the other funny thing, and so the irony is, after I finished grad school in 2014, working for Coach Self's summer basketball camps, working for athletics in the ticketing office, communications, shout out Chris Tyson, the equipment office with Larry Hare, shout out D also, and then also, what was the other department? Oh, sales. That was the toughest sales project I ever had to do, was selling KU football tickets in 2011 or 2013. Yeah, those were tough sales, doing outbound sales. But
Right.
I digress. But going and working camps at University of North Carolina, and because of the Frederick connection, Coach Fred out there, Bob's son.
That's right, his son.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I go out and work at Chapel Hill, Coach Williams' camp. And the first day of camp, I'm wearing the old 96 Nike classic Kansas shorts.
At the North Carolina camp. That
Yeah.
was bold, man.
And
that was bold.
Him and Coach Robinson, they come up and they start cracking up. They go, "We heard that we had a Kansas guy on staff." I was like, "This is your era, Coach?" And they just started cracking up. And yep,
That's cool.
yeah. So that Kansas connection runs deep. And
Yeah.
like you said about the Hall of Famers of coaches just from Kansas, but we also produced,
Oh, sure, yeah.
I mean,
The
Adolph
tree is
Rupp at
extraordinary.
Kentucky.
Yeah. Dean Smith.
Yep, Dean Smith. So
I mean, it's
wild.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's
That's
what
so
working in basketball the last decade, I always annoy everyone that I'm at I worked Duke's basketball camp too, and I met Coach K, very nice guy. I definitely did not give him any grief about the 88.
Right.
But
Well, they got us back in 91 and 90 in 91. So I mean, it was only 3 years later that they kept another national championship from us, which would have been Roy's first.
that was KU, UNLV, UNC, and Duke was the Final Four in 91.
That's right, because we beat UNC to meet Duke, and
they beat the
UNLV
Rebel
was
Rebels.
supposed to be unbeatable.
Yeah, that's right.
That was incredible. That was a long time ago, dude.
Yeah, I was only one, but I have the hat, so
Good,
I know
good.
the history, because that's why you hired me as a KU Info
Yeah,
superstar.
right.
Huh?
You know, and it's important, especially from the standpoint of this book. KU basketball is such a fantastic topic, and yeah, I actually can't count the number of podcasts I've done specifically on KU basketball because of the unending stories but this project of mine that actually it spanned the entire COVID years. It was important for me to feel as though I was presenting something that said KU is awesome and KU basketball is awesome.
And that's objective with a little bit of sprinkle of biasness, but it's objectively speaking, that's the truth. Sorry, folks.
The whole premise of the book is that if we go around telling folks how incredible KU is, and I gotta quote a Dookie on this. Jay Billis says you can't understand it unless you have experienced it. Well, I get that, it's true, but frankly, that doesn't really do the trick in explaining to people why we feel the way we feel about this university. And so the whole premise of the book is here are 60 stories that I have curated specifically so that you can have them in your back pocket when you're talking to someone who is not yet a believer in the notion that KU is the best.
And that's a great summation. And honestly, it is about honoring the history, but honoring the history to be excited about the future.
Right.
So what is the future of KU? What's exciting? What's going on up on Campanile and the Orion Hill these days?
I love that. Let's talk about that. So one of the things I can point to immediately is that there are some challenges nationwide for higher ed. And first of all, it's getting more expensive, and you can place the blame in a whole basket or a bunch of different reasons. But let's not even go there. The truth of the matter is that higher ed is getting more expensive, and I think across the board, leadership does not want it to be exclusive. Does not want people to choose not to continue their education simply because of the cost, but there are some major challenges in getting everyone opportunities for higher ed. And part of that and the fact that about 18 years ago, the market tanked and we had the 2008 recession. And
that was my senior year of high school, so it's like, cool, this is what we're going into.
Right,
we
congrats.
win the championship and then the recession. It's like, all right, okay.
Your listeners are thinking about that, right? Where were you in 2008? Well, actually, one of the challenges for young couples was, I'm not sure I'm ready to bring a child into the world during a time that there is so much unrest, so much that we don't know about what's going to happen. And because of that simple fact, we have fewer 18-year-olds this year than we have had in recent years, and higher ed is calling it the enrollment cliff. They're afraid that, we've already struggled with enrollments because the expense is keeping more and more people away from college, and now suddenly we've got fewer 18-year-olds, so we're really in trouble. Andy, the only reason I bring this up is that 2 years ago, KU broke a record for enrollments. And the following year, they broke that record. That was last year. So last year and 2 years ago, we had more first-year students than we have ever had. And how cool is that to buck the trend?
That is cool, but I am a little offended because our 2008 class was the previous record holder.
Don't be offended, baby. I mean, look. I mean, every athlete will tell you that they love holding that record for a long. And you had it for a long time. We had this record almost 20 years. Well, keep in mind that
Now you're aging me. Gosh darn
dude,
it.
please.
Sorry.
You
Carry on.
were 1 year old when KU played Duke for the national championship. That's not aging you. Bottom line, I'm KU is very careful not to announce enrollment numbers until the semester has begun, and we've had a chance to see if there are any first year students who choose not to continue or maybe don't even attend. But already I'm hearing that while we probably will not break a record for the third straight year, we are still going to be super solid, and there is even a chance that your 2008 record would have been broken this year had it not been broken last year and the year before. I just want to sum it up by saying we can continue to be super proud of our university, that it is bringing people in and giving them this amazing gift of higher education at a much more successful clip than the average higher ed institution across the country.
That's brilliantly said, and
Right.
I appreciate that. And our audience will appreciate that too, and the whole KU community. The other thing too is the value of the education at KU and the value of the experiences of going to the basketball games and this exciting new football stadium that, oh my gosh, every day driving by, it's like, blows my mind. Like, those are all exciting times, but it's also all the, opportunities for, experience and friendships with getting involved with all the campus organizations as well, and the whole community component of KU. I mean, during my undergrad, interning for the KU Alumni Association, shout out Heath. It was awesome to see
The man.
Heath's projection while him and Danny Lewis were just like my supervisors. And
Awesome.
now and then I just go across the street,
That's
live
right.
at the Union
That's right.
at KU Info and SUA. SUA was one of the pride and joys of my experience. So, like, once you look at the holistic community aspect of the value of not just in the classroom, but get out and involved and chalk it up, I guess.
That's it.
I don't know.
Oh, no,
It
that-
is a value add
I think that's
to the higher ed. It's not just getting a degree.
Well, the degree is extraordinarily important
Of
because,
course.
of course, it opens doors for you and it also broadens your perspective. But holy cow, if you are a part of an institution whose alumni care so deeply about it and want to continue being proud of their connection with the school, we all want to be a part of something bigger than ourselves. And frequently our school experience is one of the most important elements of that. And for folks that I went to school with who've been out of school for 30 years, how much they love hearing that enrollment is strong, the sports are strong, the academics, we continue to be a part of the AAU, which is such a big deal for us. We get to say, man, we're Jayhawks. There are so many reasons to be proud of that, and that helps every new graduate go out into the world and meet folks. Like you went to a camp for North Carolina, the University of North Carolina, a very proud sports program, and you wore your Jayhawk stuff, and boom, an immediate connection to the head coach and the assistant coach. And that happens at airports, it happens in other countries. We should not take that for granted.
And I love it. That's a mic drop right there. I'm not even going to tag on to that. So, but one last question for you.
All right, bring it.
All right. What's your favorite KU info trivia on what page on your book?
149, Andy. 149.
What was that? What was that? Let's flip to that
as if
real
we
quick.
have to flip to it, but why don't you read it? Because
We're just having fun, folks. All right, so page 149 of Curtis Marsh's K-Euphoria book, sold all across town in Lawrence, also online.
it's sold. Actually, keuphoria.com will take you to an online page and a sales page.
Awesome. We'll plug that in with the graphic.
ku-foria.com.
So, page 149. How many Allen Fieldhouses does it take to fill the Earth's oceans?
What kind of question is that?
Huh?
How are you going to figure that one out?
I don't know. We just use KU Info magic. Well, first you need to know how much water is in the oceans. We're using this estimate, 1.3 billion. We'll say 1,349,000. Oh, wait, no, trillion.
It's trillion.
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, there's a lot of water.
Let's try that again, folks. 1.3 trillion. Exactly. 1,349,929,000 cubic kilometers of water. Now we need to know how big Allen Fieldhouse is. Its dimensions, excluding Booth Family Hall of Athletics, are...
Sorry, Booth.
Yeah. This was way before Booth was around. And I was not as wordy with the when. Okay.
Keep going.
All right. So, Allen Fieldhouse's dimensions are 344 feet by 254 feet by 85 feet. Convert that to cubic kilometers and you get...
Oh, man.
You could say that.
Well, let's just say 1, 2, 3, 4. We're talking about a very small percentage of a cubic kilometer.
So, you could fit approximately...
Drum roll.
6,418,845,236 Allen Fieldhouses in the ocean, Earth's oceans. So, to surmise all of that wordplay and numbers that blew my own mind,
Give us a summary.
my quote was, did you know 6.4 trillion Allen Fieldhouses could fit in the world's oceans?
Ta-da!
Whoa.
That's amazing. All right. There
So
you
I'm
go.
honored. But, no, everyone's story is to be continued. Curtis Marsh, your story is to be continued. The University of Kansas is to be continued. And I'm honored for you to share this experience with me, sir.
What? The honor is mine. I love what you're doing. I love hearing stories of folks that we care about, that have done good things and are hoping to do more.
Right on.
That was the fastest hour on record.
I know, right? I was about to say, we could make this a series with all this.